I used to think kids having imaginary friends was cute, harmless, a sign of creativity, maybe even intelligence. That changed the night my daughter looked me in the eye and said, "Ben doesn't like you, Daddy." She was 5 when she first mentioned him. It was a Thursday morning, and we were eating cereal before I drove her to preschool. She picked up a spoonful, paused, and said, "Ben says I should eat all my cereal so I can grow big and strong." I looked up from my phone. "Who's Ben?" I asked, amused. She didn't even glance at me. "My friend. He lives in my closet." I chuckled. "Is Ben your new best friend?" She nodded. "Sometimes. But sometimes he gets angry." I figured she made him up. Kids do that. She's an only child, and we'd recently moved to a quieter part of town. Maybe she was lonely. I didn't think too much about it. But Ben didn't stay at the breakfast table. He started following us. Later that week, I heard her laughing alone in her room. When I peeked in, she was sitting in the center of her floor, having a full-blown conversation. "Stop it, Ben," she giggled. "You're so silly." There was no one there. At first, I thought it was adorable, but the conversations grew longer, more intense. Sometimes I'd hear her arguing. Other times, she was whispering, always toward the closet. One night, around 2 a.m., I found her sitting in the hallway, just outside her bedroom door. The lights were off. She wasn't crying, just sitting, staring at the closet. "Honey," I whispered, "what are you doing out here?" "I'm waiting for Ben." Her voice was flat. No emotion. Her eyes were wide, unnaturally wide, and fixed on the door. I picked her up, brought her to bed. She didn't resist, but she kept glancing over my shoulder, like she was scared of something behind me. A few days later, her drawing started changing. Gone were the stick figure families and smiling suns. Now, every picture showed the same thing. A tall, shadowy figure with long arms, always next to a little girl. Sometimes the figure had bright red eyes. Sometimes it had no eyes at all. But it was always there. I asked her about it. "That's Ben," she said matter-of-factly. "He doesn't like when I draw him wrong." I remember feeling a knot twist in my stomach. Why doesn't he like it? She paused. Because then he looked scary. That night, as I tucked her in, she clutched my hand tighter than usual. "Ben says not to tell you too much," she whispered. "He gets mad when I talk about him." I didn't sleep much that night. Around 3 a.m., I heard her talking again. Her door was cracked. I crept down the hallway, careful not to make a sound. Her voice was soft, almost like a lullaby. "Okay, I'll ask him tomorrow." "No, I promise I won't forget." I stood outside her door, heart pounding. She was facing the closet again, her back to me, kneeling like in prayer. "Sweetie," I said, gently pushing the door open. She didn't turn around. "Okay, I'll tell him tomorrow," she said again. I stepped closer. Her room was cold, colder than the rest of the house. My eyes shifted to the closet, and that's when I saw it. The door, slightly ajar, though I knew I'd closed it hours earlier. I moved toward her. "Who are you talking to?" Still no reaction. Then, in a voice completely unlike hers, lower, slower, she said, "Ben." I blinked. "What did you say?" She turned to look at me then. Her expression was blank. And in that moment, I swear to you, her eyes looked darker, like they weren't reflecting the hallway light at all. "He doesn't like you, Daddy," she said. I froze. She got up, crawled into bed, and fell asleep almost instantly, like nothing had happened. I stood there for a long time, watching the closet door. The next morning, I asked her who Ben really was. She stirred her cereal slowly, not looking at me. "He's just a boy," she said. "He used to live here." After that morning, I started paying closer attention. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Signs of trauma? Maybe something she saw on TV. But what I found didn't fit into any box I'd ever known. I found a list in her room one day, crumpled under her bed, written in her uneven handwriting, with letters reversed and jumbled like kids do. At the top, in red crayon, it said, "Rules for playing with Ben." There were 7 rules. Don't look at Ben's eyes too long. Never ask Ben about his mom. Don't tell Daddy when Ben is in the room. Keep the closet door open a little bit, not all the way. Don't let Ben see you cry. Say goodnight before 10:31 p.m. If Ben says hide, hide. At first I laughed. Then I didn't. I stared at the paper for what felt like hours. None of it made sense, but each line felt heavy. Like there was more beneath the surface I wasn't supposed to understand. That night, I left her door open just a crack. Sat outside listening. The hallway light barely lit my spot on the carpet, but I stayed still, my heart pounding. At 10:28, I heard her say, "Good night, Ben." Nothing followed. No footsteps. No closing doors. Just silence. Thick, unnatural silence. The kind that hums in your ears. The days blurred together. Strange things started happening. Things I wanted to explain away, but couldn't. Our dog, Max, stopped going into her room. He'd growl at the door, bark furiously, then bolt down the stairs. One morning I found him hiding under our bed, whining. Another night, he urinated right outside her closet and refused to go near it again. I thought maybe he was sick, took him to the vet. Perfect health. The family photos in the hallway started falling. Always the ones with me in them. Never her or her mom. I'd tape them back up, only to find them shattered again the next day. One photo, her baby picture with me holding her, was ripped clean down the middle. Her side untouched. My face torn through. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But the signs just kept piling up. I finally confronted her, held up the list of rules, asked her where it came from. She wouldn't speak. Her lips quivered. Her fingers clenched the edge of the table. I raised my voice. Not proud of it, but I was scared, desperate. That's when she started crying. Not loud sobs, but soft, gasping breaths. The kind of crying that sounds like panic. I knelt down beside her. "It's okay, sweetheart. I just want to understand." She looked up at me with teary eyes and whispered, "He told me not to tell you. He says you broke the rules." That night, I heard whispering again. 2 voices this time. One was hers. The other wasn't. It was too deep, too low for any child. Like a voice echoing from a cave. Like someone dragging stones across concrete. I rushed in. She was asleep. Her small chest rising and falling under the covers. The closet door, wide open. I shut it slowly. And I swear to you, something brushed past my arm as I did. Cold. Electric. Like touching the inside of a freezer. I turned on the lights. Nothing. Nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat. The next morning, she looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Skin pale. She pushed her cereal around, barely eating. Then she said, "Ben says we can't go to Grandma's this weekend." I blinked. "Why not?" "Because you won't come back." I paused, the spoon halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean, honey?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "He said if you leave, he'll make sure you don't find your way home. That you'll get lost. Forever." That was it for me. I told my wife everything. The drawings. The rules. The voices. She looked at me like I was crazy. "It's just a phase," she said. "She's lonely. You're feeding into it." But I wasn't imagining the cold spots, or the sounds, or the way Max cowered under furniture every time she spoke to the closet. I decided to sleep in her room that night, just to observe, just to prove to myself that it was nothing. I laid out a blanket and pillow on the floor beside her bed. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't. Around 3:07 a.m., I woke up freezing. Not regular cold, bone-deep cold. The kind that makes your teeth ache. The closet door was wide open. She was gone. I jumped up, heart in my throat. Looked around. Empty bed. No sign of her. Then I heard her laugh from inside the closet. Not frightened. Not crying. Laughing. I approached slowly, heart pounding. The inside of the closet was black. Blacker than it should have been. I reached in, calling her name. That's when the laughter stopped, and something else answered. Not her voice. "You shouldn't have looked at the rules." After that night, I stopped pretending. Something was in that house. And whatever it wasn't just in her head. It had seen me. Spoken to me. It knew who I was. And it didn't like me poking around. The next day, I installed cameras. I didn't tell my wife. She already thought I was losing it. But I needed proof. I set one up in her room, another in the hallway, one outside her closet, and one in the living room. That night, nothing happened. The night after, the hallway camera cut to static at 3:06 a.m. When it came back on at 3:13, her bedroom door was wide open. The living room cam caught a shadow moving past the stairs. Tall, thin, no visible face. I showed the footage to a friend of mine, who's a tech guy. He couldn't explain it. Said maybe a glitch or power interference. But we both knew the feed had never gone out before. Someone had been there. Then I started seeing it myself. It began with flickers, quick movements in the corners of my eyes. At first, I thought it was fatigue, my mind playing tricks. Then I saw him standing at the end of the hallway. I'd gotten up for a glass of water. The house was quiet. Still, I turned the corner, and there he was, tall, unmoving, his form darker than the shadows around him. Two red eyes stared back at me. I blinked, and he was gone. I rushed to my daughter's room. She was fast asleep, clutching that same crayon-drawn list of rules like a comfort blanket. From then on, the sightings became more frequent. One night I went into the kitchen and saw him reflected in the microwave door, standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged in front of me. The milk in my hand turned sour right there, unopened. I stopped sleeping much. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those red eyes in my dreams. Sometimes in the forest. Sometimes in my own room. Once, I dreamt of my daughter, walking hand in hand with him, deeper and deeper into the woods behind our house. She looked back at me and mouthed, "Help me." The next morning, she had a fever. A real one, 104 degrees. No other symptoms. She just lay in bed, eyes fluttering, whispering words I couldn't understand. Over and over again. We called the doctor. Nothing wrong. Probably viral, he said. Let it pass. That night, I stayed up to watch over her. At 2:53 a.m., her closet door creaked open. Just a few inches. She didn't move, but her lips parted. "Ben," she whispered. The air shifted. It's hard to explain. It felt like the walls tightened, like the room shrank. Then she said, "Okay, I'll ask him." I leaned closer. "Ask me what, sweetheart?" She opened her eyes. Only, They didn't look like her eyes. They were glassy, distant. Ben wants to know why you're afraid of him, she said in a voice that wasn't hers. I tried to answer, but my throat closed. I couldn't speak. She smiled faintly. He says you should be. I spent the next day numb. Couldn't eat. Could barely function. I thought about taking her to a child psychologist. Maybe even a priest. But how do you explain something like this? Then the babysitter quit. She'd been with us for over a year. Reliable. Loved our daughter like her own. But she left in the middle of her shift. Didn't even say goodbye. She texted me hours later. Don't contact me again. Whatever's in that house isn't human. I called her. She didn't pick up. That night, I checked the hallway camera again. At 3:02 a.m., something stepped out of my daughter's room. It wasn't her. It was tall, thin, no face, long arms that reached past its knees. It walked down the hall, then stopped, turned, and stared into the camera. The footage glitched. The frame froze on those red eyes. I shut the laptop, went to her room, and found another drawing. This time, it was our family, me, her, and her mom, all holding hands. And next to us was Ben. His hand wasn't holding mine. His hand was inside my chest. And blood, bright, red crayon blood, dripped from his fingers. I flipped the paper over. She'd written one word on the back. Soon. After everything, the drawings, the voices, the cameras, I knew we couldn't stay. I told my wife we had to move. She resisted at first, said it was irrational. But when she saw the footage, when she saw him, just a still frame, but clear enough to feel, she didn't argue. We packed fast. Found a new place 3 towns over. Smaller but newer. Modern. No history. Nothing old. We signed the lease without even negotiating. I didn't care. I just wanted out. The day we moved, my daughter didn't say much. As we drove away, she stared out the window. Didn't wave goodbye. Didn't cry. She just whispered, "He's not going to like this." The first night in the new house was the first peaceful sleep I'd had in weeks. No cold spots. No voices. No closet creaking open at 3 a.m. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. She stopped mentioning Ben. She colored flowers again. Animals. No red eyes. No shadows. She even laughed. Real laughter. Not that quiet, forced sound I'd gotten used to. I started to believe it was over. Then, 3 weeks later, I found her sitting on the back patio. Just sitting. Eyes closed. Smiling. "What are you doing out here, kiddo?" I asked. She didn't look at me. Talking to Ben. My blood froze. "You told me Ben stayed at the old house," I said carefully. She opened her eyes. He did. But then he remembered how to follow. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, small things started happening again. Her closet door opened on its own. Lights flickered at 10:31 p.m. sharp. Our cat hissed at empty corners. She left little paper notes on the floor, addressed to be. Most of them just said things like, "I'm sorry," or "Please not tonight." One just said, "He's inside the walls now." I checked every room, every outlet, every crawl space. Found nothing, but felt everything. The dreams came back, worse than before. One night I dreamt I was paralyzed in my bed, watching a figure crawl out from beneath it. Tall, impossibly thin, moving like liquid shadow. It climbed onto my chest, leaned close, and whispered, "You can't protect her." I woke choking on air. Another night, I dreamt of fire. Our new house burning. My daughter stood inside the flames, unharmed, smiling, holding Ben's hand. I started waking at 3 a.m. on instinct, like something wanted me to see. But every time I left the room, I found nothing, until I came back to bed and noticed my closet door was open. She began drawing him again. Only this time, the drawings were different. He had a mouth now, wide and grinning, filled with jagged red lines. In one drawing, he was crawling across the ceiling. In another, he was standing behind me. In all of them, his hands were too long. One morning I found her outside again, digging in the garden. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't look up, then said I need to make space. For what? She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. For when he gets bigger. That same day, my wife started forgetting things. Entire conversations, where she'd put her keys, what day it was. I tried to write it off as stress, but deep down I knew something was feeding. One night, I heard her whispering in her sleep. I leaned in close, trying to make out the words. She said, "He's in the walls. He's under your skin." I backed away. That night, I sat in the living room. Couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, but the kind of quiet that pushes against your eardrums. At 3 a.m., the TV turned on by itself. Static. No input. Just that white fuzz and hum. Then a voice, faint at first, buried in the static. "Why did you bring her here?" I grabbed the remote. Hit power. Nothing. The voice grew louder. "You brought her here. Now you'll never leave." I yanked the power cord from the wall. The screen stayed on. The voice wasn't angry. It was gleeful. "You opened the door, and now we're home." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. Soon, I looked up. The TV screen turned black, and in its reflection, I saw him, standing behind me. By this point, I couldn't keep pretending this was just a haunting. This was targeted, personal. Whatever Ben was, he wasn't just attached to the house. He was attached to us, to her, to me. I needed answers, so I went back. Not alone. I brought a co-worker with me. Told him I left something valuable. I didn't mention the real reason. I knew he wouldn't come if I did. We arrived at the old house mid-morning. It was vacant now. The landlord hadn't found new tenants yet. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt it. That pressure in the air. That sense of being watched. Not by something human, but by something that knew us. That remembered. I checked the closet first. Nothing unusual. Just dust and old hangers. But when I knelt down, I saw something carved into the wood at the back, behind where the clothes used to hang. Small letters. Almost childlike. "He lives in the quiet." My friend asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. I needed more. Something concrete. So I went to the county records office. Spent hours digging through property history, code violations, family names. Most people wouldn't care. I was desperate. Finally, I found something. A family lived there in the 90s. The name jumped out, Benjamin Ellis. A boy, age 6, reported missing in 1997. Never found. His mother filed the report. Said he vanished from his room during the night. No signs of forced entry. No witnesses. The investigation stalled. The case eventually closed, presumed abducted. But there was something else. A single line buried in the notes from the responding officer. He quoted the mother. He kept saying something was inside the walls. I felt my stomach turn. There were no follow-ups. But I found a newspaper clipping. Local press. The kind of thing people forget. The mother, Mary Ann Ellis, was later hospitalized. Psychiatric care. She claimed she still heard her son talking to her. At night. Through the drywall. She wasn't released. Died in care. The facility was 2 hours away. I drove there without thinking twice. It was old, part of it boarded up. The inside smelled like antiseptic and mildew. I lied my way through the front desk. Said I was writing about unsolved disappearances. Asked if I could see Mary Ann's records. The receptionist, an older nurse, hesitated. Eventually, she pulled a file. She didn't say much, just handed it over with a soft, "You're not the first one to ask about her." That stuck with me. Inside the file, one photo, one drawing, one note. The drawing was of a boy. Long arms, red eyes, a stitched mouth. The note read, "He's not gone. He never left. He waits behind the quiet." That was the second time I'd heard that word used, quiet. It wasn't just silence, it meant something. A place. A layer between. I sat in my car for an hour before driving home. I didn't tell my wife. What could I even say? Didn't tell my daughter either. But that night, she came to my room. Her eyes were wide, scared, glassy. "Daddy," she whispered, "Ben's mad." I pulled her into bed, held her like I used to when she was little. "Why, baby? Why is he mad?" Her voice was quiet. "Because you went back." I tensed. "He says you're trying to break the rules again. He says you need to stop looking." I didn't sleep. Every creak of the floor, every rustle of wind outside, I thought it was him. At 2:58 a.m., I heard something from inside the wall behind our headboard. Whispers. Then breathing. I pressed my ear against the drywall. It wasn't pipes. It wasn't mice. It was breathing. Rhythmic. Human. Close. I stood up, grabbed a flashlight, and went to the attic. The air was thick, dust swirling in my light beam. I moved slowly, heart pounding. In the far corner, beneath the insulation, I saw something. Objects tucked into a nest of old blankets. Toys. Child-sized. Some broken. Some rusted. A wooden block. A headless doll. An action figure. I picked up the figure. On its back, written in faded marker, Ben. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a presence. It wasn't a ghost trying to scare us. It was a memory trying to survive. That night, the house felt different. More alive. The lights dimmed and flickered every hour on the hour. The walls creaked even when no one moved. And at exactly 3:13 a.m., every screen in the house, TV, phone, laptop, turned on, glowing white. And one word appeared across every screen. Enough. That night, I knew it had to stop. I couldn't protect her anymore. Not like this. Every night, he was growing bolder, stronger. It wasn't just whispers now, it was touch. Cold, invisible fingers brushing our arms. Breath on our skin. The feeling of being watched always. As if the air itself was learning to hate us. I researched everything. Cleansings, symbols, exorcisms. Nothing stuck. One site mentioned closing the invitation. That every haunting begins with a door and ends when you lock it. But we never opened a door. She did. I sat her down the next day, held her little hands in mine. "Sweetheart, how did Ben find you?" She hesitated, eyes on the floor. "I didn't mean to let him in," she said. "He was just lonely." The word hit me like a punch. Lonely. He wasn't angry at first. He just wanted someone. She continued. He asked if he could stay for a little while. I said yes. He was nice in the beginning. That's when I realized we weren't dealing with a typical spirit. This was something that had latched on through consent, through connection, not possession, attachment. I reached out to a woman I found online, a former medium turned trauma counselor. She didn't charge me, said she'd dealt with similar things before. She arrived 2 nights later, walked through the house, said very little. Her face went pale the moment she stepped into my daughter's room. "He's not pretending anymore," she said. "What is he?" I asked. She looked at me, voice brittle, something that forgot how to be human. She didn't offer a ritual, no incense or chants, just a choice. Remove what he's anchored to, or remove yourselves. I asked what he was anchored to. She didn't blink. We didn't sleep that night. We packed bags, booked a hotel. I told my daughter we were going on a trip. She looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Ben won't let us go." At 2:45 a.m., the fire alarms blared. Smoke, thick, heavy, pouring down the hallway like fog in a nightmare. I grabbed my daughter, pulled her close. My wife was already yelling. We couldn't see. The lights popped one by one, bursts of glass raining to the floor. Then his voice. Not a whisper, a roar. Inside our heads. "You're not leaving." We ran. Down the stairs. Through the thick, black smoke. But it wasn't just smoke, it was cold. Biting. Like ice scraping your lungs. The front door slammed shut as we approached it. The house itself shook. Paint cracked from the walls. Pictures fell. The floors groaned. He was in the walls, the ceilings, the very structure. Screaming, crying, laughing. I turned to my daughter. "Tell him to stop." Tears streamed down her face. "He doesn't want me to go. He said I made a promise." "Tell him it's over." She shook her head. "He says you're the liar, not me." We tried to get out a window, stuck. Nailed shut. Tried the back door, deadbolt. We were trapped. The floorboards buckled. The temperature dropped below freezing. Frost crept up the walls like veins. Then everything went still. My daughter stepped forward, slowly, like sleepwalking. Stopped in the middle of the living room. I called out to her. She turned around, only it wasn't her face. Her eyes were all black, her mouth twisted in a grin that didn't belong to her. "Ben says it's your turn," she said. The room pulsed. Lights flared and burst. Then he appeared, for the first time. No more glimpses. No more shadows. Full form. He stepped out from the wall itself. Pale skin. Red eyes. Arms too long. Face cracked like dry clay. And that grin. Wide. Unmoving. He didn't walk. He floated. Straight toward me. I held my daughter behind me. Shouted into the dark. "Take me. Let her go." He stopped inches from my face. And for a second, I saw something in his eyes. A flicker. Pain. Recognition. Then, in a voice that sounded like 1,000 broken whispers, he said, "You were never supposed to know." And vanished. Everything fell silent. No smoke. No cold. The front door creaked open by itself. We didn't look back. We moved the next day. Left everything. Clothes. Furniture. Photos. The past. Gone. We now live 3 states away. In a small apartment with bright windows and no closets. Just shelves and drawers. My daughter doesn't talk about Ben anymore. But sometimes, I catch her looking at a blank wall, as if she's listening. I ask her what she hears. She always says, "Nothing." But last night, I found a note under her bed, crayoned on the back of an old drawing, in those same reversed letters from long ago. Waiting.